Well, are you looking to make a bit of extra cash? Well, now's the time to do it, with the Israeli shekel being its highest value relative to the dollar in recent memory. Well, great news if you're Israeli and are currently abroad, but exporters are feeling the pinch, with reports that the Bank of Israel intervened on the rise just last week, purchasing foreign currency to slow it down. And for more on this story, let's bring in Professor Dan Ben-David, who is an economist from the Department of Public Policy at Tel Aviv University. Professor, lovely to have you on. These sort of highs haven't been seen in decades. Tell me, what can we put this jump down to?
Well, it's been about 25 years at least since we've been at these levels. The primary reason is that we are the startup nation, and it's showing. While the rest of the world is slowly recovering from the COVID pandemic, because so many of our eggs are in one basket, high tech, and that high tech is not suffering like many other sectors. We're doing very well, at least whoever's in high tech, which is just 9% of our workforce. But high tech is exporting a lot, so. The two main avenues for flows of foreign currency are exports and imports, and we are now exporting a lot more than we're importing, and that's risen over time. So more is flowing in than flowing out. And because the high tech is so attractive, a lot of foreign currency is flowing in as investments. So on both of those tracks, we have a lot of money wishing to be converted into shekels, which is making the shekel very strong.
And Professor Ben-David, what can we make of these reports that Israel has now moved into purchase of foreign currency to make sure it doesn't spike too much? It's certainly not the news some people will be wanting to hear, right?
We have been purchasing actually foreign currency in huge numbers for about 20 years now. But if in 1999, we had about $20 billion worth of foreign exchange, and within a decade, it went up to about 90 billion. We are now over 200 billion. It just spiked up in recent over the recent month and a half or so, because of the desire of Bank of Israel to prevent the shekel from getting even stronger than it already is. And we're at 314, I think, today. Shekels to the dollar, which is really, really low. And the Bank of Israel is trying to prevent it from going any lower by just purchasing as many dollars as it can. Not clear that that's a policy for the long run. It can't keep it up forever.
And Professor, you know, we all know that living in Israel, especially Tel Aviv, is extremely expensive. So many families here really feeling the pinch. You've got food costs, mortgages, etc. What does this mean for the average person, fairly briefly?
Actually, that's the bright side of all this. Things that are imported to Israel are now becoming a lot cheaper. It's the flip side of what you said at the beginning. For Israelis going abroad, things are less expensive. Same thing for Israelis living in Israel. The things that we import become much less expensive. So that's a boon, unless you're working in a factory or in a company that has to export, and those companies are getting hurt. So you may not end up losing your job, but pay less for the food you buy.
All right, and so, you know, what are your tips for people to make the most of this valued currency?
I'm the last person you want to ask for tips with regard to foreign currency.
What would you do? You know, if you came into another country and it was really spiking, what would be your first move there?
I'm not a speculator, so I would just go with the flow. And if I'm abroad and I have a strong shekel, then I'm just enjoying buying things for less than it costs me. But I'm not the person to ask about speculating.